Sup guys, Fuffin here, and today I'm going to give you my combat and positioning guide for Teamfight Tactics Set 4. So this guide is going to be a little bit different from other guides you might have seen on YouTube. Whereas many other guides will talk specifically how to position every unit, I want to try and discuss why units are placed where they are. In addition, I'm going to try and classify every unit in TFT into their respective category, and try and give you an idea of where they should go. This guide will hopefully help you understand more about the game itself instead of just copying for what the meta calls for right now. Anyway, with all that said, let's get in the video. So the first thing I want to talk about is the combat and targeting system in TFT. So the way it works is at the beginning of combat, all units will target forward for the first available champion in their attack range. If no enemy is in a hex directly in front, they'll scan the row from right to left. If there are no champions in their range, they'll move back another row and continue this process until a target is found. During this, they'll also walk around the map outside of their own attack range. After combat has begun, champions will attempt to target anything that's in their general area, usually trying to attack either the closest unit to itself or the closest unit to the last unit that they've targeted. It should also be noted that stealth will actually remove targeting from itself unless they're the only champion remaining. When a champion is being attacked, it is called taking aggro, aggro being short for aggression. So when stealth is activated, they will drop aggro on themselves, making whoever was targeting them target a new enemy. The other thing in this vein is taunting. Taunting, in essence, is the opposite of stealth. Taunting will make all enemy units attack the unit performing the taunt. In this current set, there are only 3 taunt interactions: 6 Cultist Galio's ult, Shen's ult, and the ZZ Rot portal item. Both stealth and taunting can be good for redirecting a fight. The last thing involving aggro, stealth, and taunts has to do with attack range and target switching. There are some cases where no units are in attack range, so your unit will, like I said before, begin to move into the attack range of the enemy. This can cause issues with certain champions, and I guess I'll talk about that later, but it should be noted now. Remember, the attack range of any champion is present in their information box. Champions like Pyke will also stun, which can cause a unit to switch targeting to a different unit after coming out of the stun. Because Pyke can enter and exit attack ranges with his stun, he's a good example here, but it's safe to assume that any stuns in the game work this way. Next up, I want to get some more jargon out of the way and also label the board. So the main parts of the board, which you can see on screen, are the front line, back line, corners, and cubbies. Each of these has different uses I'll get onto later. People will also call the middle rows second and third, with them being used differently by different people, but I prefer the top middle as second and under as third. Some other terms people will use are things like full back line, solo front line, and cornering. These are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go over them anyway real quick. Full back line is where all your units on your team are going to be on the back line. This makes enemy units have to run deep onto your board and is good for assassin and sharpshooter comps, for example. Solo front line is only putting one unit directly in front of the enemy so they take all the aggro. This is either to let the unit die quickly so that other units don't take damage, or so that the solo frontline unit can gain mana quicker. Cornering will just refer to placing a unit in the corner hexes. As I mentioned a bit ago, you gain mana by taking damage. This is a pretty common thing that's known in TFT, but I wanted to refresh it in your minds so that we can think about it when we place our units. Now that we have that out of the way, let's move on to team building. A common strategy in TFT is called playing your strongest board. I see players often struggle with this, and in essence what this means is playing the most optimal units and synergies that you can while also trying to combine items that are used in many comps. This tactic is very good for win streaking, and if you can master this skill, you will almost always have a very strong early game. In essence, to have a strong board, you need strong items and a strong team. Items will need their whole other video, but things like GA and Sunfire are never bad early. To create a strong team, you need a front line to tank and a back line to carry. In the early game, you want to look for things like brawlers, vanguards, keepers, or exile, because the extra defensive stats are going to be great for your front line. You want these units to stall out the fight so that your back line can actually dish out damage. For back line, you want either a ranged carry or an assassin. Ranged carries are typically safer when the enemy doesn't have assassins and can do more damage, but with assassins, your carry can be killed extremely quickly. Scouting early will show you what your options are and can help you with playing your strongest board. If you want to learn how to scout effectively, I have a whole guide here that you can check out. In essence, you want to use your gold to pick up as many options to allow yourself the most flexible team. Picking an early chosen is also good for winning early, especially if it's a defensive trait chosen like Vanguard or a carry champion like Duelist Yasuo. I wanted to make a big note of this and try and let people in on the nuance of playing your strongest board, as something I see players do a lot is tunneling in something like brawlers when they pass up a lot of vanguards. Remember that you can always sell the champions, and preserving health in this strategy gives you a huge advantage over your opponents. So with all that out of the way, let's get to positioning and classifying units. All units in TFT can fit into a category. Some of these include tank, range carry, melee carry, assassin, and support. I'll get into these more later, but typically you're going to place tanks on the front line to absorb damage or to catch an assassin, for instance. You're going to put ranged carries in the back line or third row to avoid damage, and melee carries in the second row because they need to be close to combat but not take immediate aggro because they're not tanky enough to survive like full front damage. Assassins and supports are based on the unit, and I'll talk about that later too. So when we discuss these categories, we need to also make note that not all units are classed in one category. For example, Yasuo is a melee carry. However, due to the Exile trait, he gains a shield. And with Exile 2, he also gains lifesteal. Depending on how you itemize him, he can easily work as a tank as well as a carry. These situations are kind of niche, so you don't have to worry too much. Just keep in mind that these classes are more of what you can do with the units instead of what a unit's identity is. In general, we can think about units like Garen, Hecarim, Sejuani, and Set as tank frontliners. In some cases, they can even be solo frontline depending on star level and items. If you have items and think they can cast their ultimate, solo frontline might be fine for whatever comp you want. Examples of ranged carries are things like Twisted Fate, Aphelios, Jinx, Ashe, and Jhin. These are units that, like I mentioned before, want to be away from the fight directly and can deal a ton of damage from afar. Melee carries do damage, but from up close, and these can include champions like Yasuo, Jax, Riven, and Kayn. And for the last two, you can classify any assassin as a champion with the assassin or shade trait, and you can call any unit a support if they shield or heal your team. These are not mutually exclusive, as you may have noticed Kayn has a shade and also a melee carry, making him a melee carry assassin. For example of the supports, many mystics have these attributes, but this may just be coincidental. Janna, Yuumi, Ezreal, and Zillion are great support units to have. Now that we've discussed general positioning tips, let's move into actual scenarios where we can apply these. So in TFT, you are always faced with opponents, so you need to take into account their boards too. The positionings that I've laid out before and that you may see from other content creators are usually just guideline positioning. To really learn the fine details of positioning, you need to apply it in-game circumstances. Let's say that you are playing a comp like Ashe Brawler. This is generally an easy one. You have Ashe as a ranged carry who can be your damage and that you need to protect. Running Quicksilver as an item lets you corner her safely, making her immune to crowd control. Now, because of that, all you need to do is protect against assassins. So if you fill hexes next to your carry, assassins won't be able to get to her, instead stopping on them. These units act as bait and are typically just more tank units. Additionally, something that needs to be noted is that there are champions with huge area effects or AoE ultimates. So if you think you may face them, you need to try and space out as much as possible. In this example, you still have units remaining, so you can place them away from your team if they benefit from it in some way, and if you want to reduce the value of enemy AoE. Positioning isn't just about you, remember, and you have to fight 7 other people, so learning how to position can mean the difference in winning fights versus losing fights. Something else I need to touch up on is weird positioning based on unit specific needs. An example of this would be like Set's trait, the Boss, states that when he is reduced to a certain health, he'll leave the battlefield. This means that solo frontline Set activates this much quicker, so it may be fine to just keep him solo frontline all the time. In addition, units like Yuumi have specific patterns for their ults. I'm not going to go into huge detail on either of these because you should get in the habit of really reading everything you can in TFT and seeing for yourself how it can work. If I just show you what people do without you understanding or maybe coming to a better conclusion on your own, then when future sets come out, the information you have is just not going to be available anymore. But with that said, I'm going to show you how to counter some of the current meta's most popular examples because I think these concepts will help you in a different way. I mentioned earlier that Ashe needs QSS to stay in the corner safely. With the popularity of a certain tank Aatrox, putting units on corner hexes has become a little dicey. Aatrox's ultimate will pull champions who are farthest from him to him, meaning that he can take your backline carry right into the middle of the action. Quicksilver will stop crowd control for a certain period of time at the beginning of combat, meaning his ultimate is completely negated. Another counter later in the game is actually Azir. As the Emperor trait will spawn 2 additional units that do not move, you can place them in the corner hexes and Aatrox will waste his ult on 2 pretty much fake units. Azir is also good for countering champions who have either low health or random targeting because placing sand soldiers away away from your team will cause the enemy to redirect some of their ultimates. Strategies like this can really up your game, and specifically why you don't see Azir in low elo, but why he dominates in high elo. Just make sure to read all you can about units and their traits, and maybe you can come up with a new strategy that can be defining for the meta and be the key for your success. With that said, I want to move on to defining every champion into their class or possible classes. For this section, I want to go by order of cost, so bear with me. Diana is an assassin melee carry that with Gunblade can also be a tank. Elise is a tank frontliner. Fiora is a melee carry that can double as a tank if made 2-star in the early game. Garen is a tank frontliner that can be solo early. Lissandra can be a tank frontliner, but if itemized, can be a ranged carry. Maokai is a tank frontliner. Nami can be a tank frontliner or can be considered a ranged carry for the crowd control she provides. It's hard to class her and a few others, so I'll just call her and any others that kind of fit in the same vein as CC supports for the rest of this list. Nidalee is a ranged carry. Tahm Kench is a tank frontliner. Twisted Fate is a ranged carry. Vayne is a ranged carry. Wukong is a tank but can be made a ranged carry if itemized Damon and given rapid fire cannon. Yasuo is a melee carry but can be tank if itemized. Annie is a tank frontliner. Aphelios is a ranged carry. Hecarim is a tank frontliner. Janna is a support. Jarvan is a tank. Jax is a tank or melee carry. Lulu is a CC support. Pyke is an assassin. Sylas is a tank, frontline or other. Teemo is a CC support but may also be considered a ranged carry. Thresh is a tank, frontline or other. Vi is a tank, frontline or other. Zed is a melee carry assassin, but with rapid fire cannon can be a ranged melee carry assassin. Akali is a melee carry assassin, but as with Zed, rapid fire cannon can be used to make them ranged. Evelynn is an assassin. Irelia is a tank. Jinx is a CC support / ranged carry. Callista is a ranged carry. Katarina is an assassin. Kennen is a CC support. Kindred is a ranged carry. Lux is a CC support / ranged carry. Nunu is a tank, frontline or other. Veigar is a ranged carry. Xin Zhao is a tank frontliner. Yuumi is a support, possible frontline if itemized. Aatrox is a tank, frontline or other. Ahri is a ranged carry, however, if given Guardian Angel, possible to be frontline for faster ultimates. Ashe is a ranged carry. Cassiopeia is a CC support frontliner. Jhin is a ranged carry. Morgana is a ranged carry. Riven is a melee carry. Sejuani is a tank frontliner. Shen is a tank, frontline or other. Talon is a melee carry assassin. Warwick is a melee carry tank. Azir is a CC support. Ezreal is a CC support. Kayn is a melee carry assassin. Itemizing for tank or choosing the Rost or Red transformation will let you play as a tank melee assassin. Lee Sin is a melee carry CC support. With rapid fire cannon, he can become a ranged carry CC support. Lilia is a CC support. Set is a tank frontliner. Yone is a melee carry. Zillion is a support. That was a mouthful, but hopefully that helps you understand exactly every champion's classification in Teamfight Tactics Set 4. This video is without a doubt the most time consuming and intensive one I've made so far. I hope you enjoy it all the same. Anyway, I think this will be it for this one, so I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.